This short video shows a small collection of photographs taken during a trip to Cheltenham in 2025 to watch the Dead Ringers team performing at the town hall. The show was great, but Cheltenham was generally disappointing. For much of the time, the police were engaged in chasing unruly yobs causing chaos in the town centre. As for the venue, the town hall was designed by the Gloucester architect Frederick William Waller and built in the classical style during the early Edwardian period. It was a local firm, Collins and Godfrey, that erected the structure. Our first attempt to visit Cheltenham Minster was unsuccessful, as it was closed. The building is only open for 2 hours a day when it is staffed by volunteers to prevent damage by vandals and hooligans. The fact that the main church of this former spa town cannot be left open during the day speaks volumes about the state of the place. Wandering around the town, we witnessed antisocial behaviour several times. With the minster locked, the vandals turned their attention to trashing the graveyard. Still, don't be put off because the interior of the church is full of interest. You can wiki-thingy the building for more information, the church warden being a helpful guide to further insight during a walkabout. One of the elements inside the minster with which the church wardens enjoy setting a quiz is the Last Supper window. They will ask you if you can spot Judas Iscariot. Or can you? The Victorian glass, like a number of others in the minster, is the work of Lavers Bard and Westlake. Spotted Judas yet? By the way, the rose window here is magnificent. The sun was not in the correct position during our visit, so my photograph of that work is poor. Given up yet? Judas is the man with the brown halo, and he has a bag of loot in front of him. The cynic within me questions why the developers retained part of the Cheltenham original brewery, though of course I'm glad that there is a fragment of the past within this retail and leisure area. The fact that the website advertises meeting space, team building and corporate hospitality says it all really. And why did they use the American spelling of ambience? Visiting Cheltenham presented us with an opportunity to visit a branch of brewhouse and kitchen, a concept that is a little funky but does not really seem to be all about the beer brewed on site with members of the public. The ale we tried was acceptable but not dazzling. The business model of founders Simon Bunn and Chris Gumbrell seems to be more about group entertaining and selling food. Perhaps I'm wrong, but that is the perception after visiting this venue. At the time of our visit, this was one of a couple of dozen branches, mainly in the south of England. The concept is not without its issues. The company, finding the costs of running an in-house brewing operation were higher than anticipated, along with the realization that the plant and equipment took up a lot of space. And there's the rub. They have recently ripped out the brewery in some branches in order to create space for dining. Actually, although it seems like great theatre in a pub, I wasn't sure if the equipment had been used for a while. Brewhouse and Kitchen is one of a cluster of trendy venues occupying the site of the Cheltenham original brewery. Oh, nearly forgot. This brewery was officially opened in 2016 by local celebrity Eddie the Eagle, the former Olympic ski jumper. The brewery was named the Flying Eagle. One has to give credit to the Victorians for the way they treated their utilities buildings. For example, look at some of the beautiful water pumping houses around the country. Here in Cheltenham, they built an electricity substation in the style of Palazzo Strozzi in Florence, Tuscany. Well, so they say. To my eye, it is very loosely based on that specific building, though it does incorporate elements of the Gothic style of Italianate architecture. It is a building of two construction periods, the original building, erected in 1897, to the designs of Joseph Hall, the borough surveyor. A third story was added 3 years later to facilitate the extra equipment required to supply the Cheltenham Light Railway Company. In more recent years, the building formed part of several boutique accommodation suites. The St George's vaults and the former electricity substation have been melded together with a glass box, throwing up a dichotomy one generally sees on the continent, and Belgium in particular. The former beer house followed the usual pattern here in Cheltenham, in that it was operated by a local brewery before becoming part of West Country Ales and then Whitbread. It was under the latter's ownership that Roger and Sue Bishop ran it as a Whitbread pub partnership. The couple also operated the Suffolk Arms, Somerset Arms, Exmouth Arms, along with the Duke of York at Charlton Kings. Look closely. Elvis is alive and kicking in Cheltenham. The life-size king of rock and roll is on the lash 24/7 in this pub lined with unusual memorabilia. The exhibits devoted to Stan Laurel are due to the landlord being a descendant of Arthur Stanley Jefferson. I can claim a connection here. I've been to the house at Ulverston where Stan Laurel was born, along with visiting Graceland in Memphis. In the shadow of the Public Library, Museum and Art Gallery, the former Horse and Groom is located on the south-eastern side of St George's Place, on the corner of Chester Walk. In the late Victorian era, this was an outlet of Godsall and Sons Limited, so I assume it would later be operated by the Stroud Brewery. Yuck! Who thought that painting the whole building in dark grey was a good idea? Owned by Arkell's Brewery of Swindon in collaboration with the Dodo Pub Company, the interior has also received similar unsympathetic treatment, so older drinkers wouldn't recognise the place. But I think that's the idea. Now trading under the Cockney rhyming slang for horse, the bottle of sauce was known as the St James Hotel when operated by Whitbread. That inn sign referenced the nearby railway station operated by the Great Western Railway for much of its life. The St James name was itself a rebranding of the Railway Hotel on the corner of Ambrose Street and Manchester Street. Diagonally opposite there was the Burton Brewery Inn. Looking at a late Victorian map, it would appear that this single-storey building was an extension of the hotel on the corner of Ambrose Place. The construction of this corner section may have taken place when Charles Huffnall was the landlord. He was in charge for 15 years until he left the town in 1899. During his time, it was stated that he had earned the respect of a large number of residents. Accordingly, some of his friends presented him with a valuable carriage clock as a parting gift, while his daughter was the recipient of a pair of opera glasses. I was trying to be greedy when taking this photograph. I wanted to nab a view of the Bays Hill pub, separate names of Bays Hill in the old days, along with a bit of the large mural on the side of the building. As part of the Cheltenham Paint Festival, this was created in 2018 by the acclaimed artist Bo Stanton. He has created works around the world, including the Berlin Wall and Times Square. This work is entitled The Huntress. Featuring 5 chimney stacks, the tall building to the rear of the pub was possibly where a brewery was operated in the mid-19th century by William and Samuel Stinchcombe. Residents of Cheltenham have to thank the local fire brigade for still having the Bays Hill as a drinking establishment. The brigade were called out in January 2014 following the outbreak of a fire in the cellar, thought to be an electrical fault. The Wadworth Brewery operated building was badly damaged but salvaged in double quick time and opened at the end of the following month. When I took this photograph in October 2025, I believe that this building was unlisted. Considering that it incorporates some elements of Art Nouveau architecture in red brick and stone, this seems an oddity. In 1989, the former Crescent bakery won the Restoration of a Historic Building Award for the Salespire Partnership, who used the architects the Heath Avery Partnership and Kellard's Construction. The building has been divided into separate business units, but the good news is that the central retail space still sells bakery products. Well, we had to nip in for a cake. Who can resist a nice cake during a perambulation? Lock & Sons announced the opening of the new electric bakery in September 1905. This advertisement, featuring the firm's flagship brand, was published in the local press during 1911. By 1964, the bakery was servicing 7 shops, 6 in Cheltenham and 1 in Tewkesbury. This was stated in court when Mrs. Judith Linnell took out a legal action against the firm after she bought 5 cakes from the branch of Leopold & Son in the High Street. She ate one and had started on the second when she noticed a fly embedded in it. The bakery was fined £25 after pleading guilty of selling a cake not of the substance demanded. This 25-foot long triptych was the longest piece she had done, so said Barbara Hepworth when commenting in 1972 on themes and variations mounted on the facade of Cheltenham House in Clarence Street. The bronze sculpture was created between 1969 and 1972 and commissioned by Healing and Overbury, the architects of the building. It would be Barbara Hepworth's final public commission. The Clarence Street offices housed the Cheltenham and Gloucester Building Society. However, the locals did not approve of the work when it was first placed on the structure. Ironically, when the Building Society moved out of the offices to Barnwood and expressed a desire to take the artwork with them, the townsfolk proved that they had grown to like the work and demanded that it remained exactly where it was. The Borough Council backed the petition to keep the 26-piece work in Clarence Street. The Cheltenham and Gloucester Building Society maintained that because they had paid £8,000 for themes and variations in 1972, it was theirs to do as they like. A battle between corporate and council ensued. It was an issue that would drag on for years. Almost facing Berkeley Street, the Sandford Park Alehouse stands at the south-eastern end of Cheltenham's High Street. The park, after which it was named, is to the rear of the building on the other side of the River Chelt. For one reason or another, this was our first visit to this former winner of Canberra National Pub of the Year. But that was back in 2015 when it was operated by Grant Cook, converting the XS nightclub into a real ale pub in 2013. Citing health reasons, he sold up in 2019 and moved to London. He had previously operated 2 pubs in Leicester, the Swan and Rushes and the Criterion. Expecting to find the legacy of great things, we were quite underwhelmed by the Sandford Park Alehouse. The beer choice was poor, considering it was supposed to have a long line of hand pulls in operation. The beer quality was average, the pub untidy and strewn with empty glasses, despite it being a quiet time of the day, with the indifferent staff just chatting behind the counter. On the plus side, there are a few interesting Brewery frames on the walls, and there is a bar billiards table. However, we felt no love for the Sandford Park Alehouse, so supped up and vacated the premises. Despite some of my negative comments on some aspects of Cheltenham, we did enjoy our 2-day visit to watch Dead Ringers. We particularly liked Habiba on High Street and the Coconut Tree on St Paul's Road. I have uploaded videos for these businesses in my playlist for Food and Eating Out. Thanks for viewing and listening to my blurb. If you enjoyed the video, please give a thumbs up. Post your comments below if you have more info or a question. If you think these video clips rock, you can also subscribe to the channel.